posture, looks, color, tone. We fall into design. Non-matching black pants that you have because you're just trying to put two blacks together, but it's not the same black. It's sharing the light. And it reminds her every time that she's out there, she has the candle company, she's sharing the light. Everything is the image and everything needs to be brandable for you. I was smoking like I was on fire, drinking like I was putting it out, heathen head to toe. I just didn't care, Corey. And I don't know if it was external, Corey. I don't know if it was internal inside of me. Now I hadn't even come to the Lord yet. Walking a dog down the aisle. Yeah, maybe we are in a huge gold mine right now. Corey, I put it on and I felt.
Welcome to the Key Concepts podcast. When I hear the word suit, I think of a button-up shirt and a blazer, just like everybody else. But what I learned while researching my guest today is that bespoke craftsmanship is the art of creating a suit entirely around one individual and is the highest level of tailoring. Could you imagine that? Today, we sit down with our special guest, Craig Brewington, the founder and creative director of EndeavoredThreads. And Craig, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Corey. Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. So Craig, I want to time travel a little bit.
Time travel.
If I met the 20-year-old Craig today, what kind of person would I meet and why?
20-year-old Craig. Man, 20 years old was very, very hard for me. Tremendous tragedy in my own life, which then sent me on a, decade and a half long spiral of trying to figure out identity. Who am I? Whose am I? What am I about? What am I gonna be doing? And it was a time of understanding how much pressure you can take before you either break or you become a diamond. Because we look at this diamond, Corey, right? You look at a diamond and we see it as its perfect state, even though a diamond technically is imperfect. You have lab grown diamonds, you have things, but a true good diamond still has imperfections in it. However, we see it once it's already been polished on all of its facets. But we don't understand that a diamond is just a piece of coal that did really, really well under extreme heat and pressure. And then it's created. And then you go, ooh, look at this. And then it's cut and then it's polished into what we see as like this glorious thing of a diamond. And I think that's the story of my life is all of this pressure, all of this heat, all of this just meh that's been put on you. Are you going to curl up and give up and die? Or are you going to persevere? And I always believe that struggle breeds greatness. Struggle breeds awesomeness. And in that greatness, there's always should be perfection. But are you gonna go through? That's why, hence, EndeavoredThreads, the word endeavored, anything that is a struggle, but worthwhile to get through.
So you mentioned a big tragedy.
Yeah.
If you don't mind sharing, what was that led to this immense amount of pressure?
Yeah. At such a young age, I had a daughter. Her name was Cody Mae Brewington. Notice I said was. She was born a day before my 19th birthday. She's October 12th. I'm October 13th. But then unfortunately, she passed away. Tragic car accident. And I was taking her to daycare in the morning and we had a car accident and she didn't make it and I did. So November 10th, 2000 is her anniversary date of her death. So October, November, for the longest time were the rough years, the rough times for me. My ex and I broke up. I had to leave. I had to jettison that relationship very quickly. I couldn't deal with the constant blame of killing my daughter every single waking moment of my day. It was pretty tumultuous, man. Like the situation that I truly believe that I had to get out of. But losing Cody it's hard. To anybody, I'll just take the platform. If anybody's dealing with loss of a child or, miscarriage, that kind of stuff. Even loss of a family member, it is extremely hard. I ran to alcohol. I was smoking like I was on fire, drinking like I was putting it out, heathen head to toe. I just didn't care, Corey. I didn't care about a lot of things. And I had to relearn how to live life outside of alcohol. I didn't realize how much it was in my life of doing every single thing, fishing, miniature golf, golfing, hanging out with the boys, football games, barbecue, every single thing was surrounded around that. And I had to retrain my brain. Just like when I lost Cody, I had to retrain every aspect of my life, because even though it was a short time, a year and a month, but it was everything about her. For 2 years, even in the pregnancy, was baby, home life, everything. There was a long time where I would still hear a baby cry in my brain or in my head, and I would wake up out of nowhere and start crying or feel this emptiness of not having. And then I would replay in my head the accident, that situation, going through that for years, brother. I was holding on to so much guilt because of that. And then I found a release. I found peace. But that was late in my testimony.
This tragedy happens, and I'm truly sorry for your loss. And you're going through the pressure cooker. Life is throwing everything at you. You're young. You don't have your compass. You don't know which direction you're going. And alcoholism is kind of your outlet to vent and your release. But during that time, you have your internal chatter. What was that conversation with yourself like?
The internal chatter while I was in it was, I think, built up from a lot of things that I think most people go through of, you're not enough. You're not worthy. You can't do this. You're never going to get out of this. It was very negative. It was very the nightmare. Through that, I learned how to harness that into a positive through entrepreneurship, getting around big business entrepreneurship, and having mentors come into my life to see a way out of the tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel. But I think for most people is you have to, in that moment, stop listening to the static, because the static on an AM radio it's not positive or negative. It's just static. And I think the hardest thing for me, and some of these things that we're going to talk about are probably first time I've ever admitted some of this stuff. But my grandfather told me one time it's 18 inches. I was like, what? I was going through something. Like I said, I was a bad kid. I got through this situation, and he said 18 inches. And I was like, I didn't understand it. And he was like, it's 18 inches, 18 inches between your head to your heart. And then you have this 8 inches, 18 and 8, 18 and 8. I'm like, what does that mean? 18 inches between your head to your heart, and the 8 inches between 2 ears, like of what comes in and your brain, of how you think, how you process things. My biggest struggle was looking in the mirror and being able to look myself in the mirror and be okay with the reflection that I was seeing, and being okay with that.
If you could tell yourself anything during that time, what would it be?
Stay the course. Stay the course. I just know so much now in hindsight to everything that happened that was decreed, predestined, elected for me to go through, that for momentary light affliction is producing for you an eternal weight of glory, far beyond all comparison. For do not focus on the things which are seen, focus on the things which are unseen. For the things which are seen are temporal. For the things which are unseen are eternal.
Do you think you're younger, you would have been ready to receive those words?
I would hope that I would listen to myself, but if I was to be transparent, there was no man alive or woman or any authority I was anti, could have pulled me out of what I thought myself was going to do. I was very anthropocentric. I was very man-centered. I was very me, it's for me, my way or the highway. And so to try to shed that stuff now on the path that I'm on is still hard. There's a fight between the outer and the inner man that's going on between me, of where my heart's at now versus everything that I've experienced up into this point. So it's hard. Yeah.
So you're going through this tragedy. You're directionless. You have a few mentors that come into your life, and you stay the course, as we can all tell now. But there was a turning point where you told yourself, something's got to change.
Absolutely.
So what was that day like? What was that situation?
Well, just to clarify, I didn't always stay the course. I that's where I wear this anchor ring. you have to be anchored to something. And this is where I preface this question. You have to be anchored to something. But as you're anchored, because if you're not anchored, you're just going to float around, right? But as a mooring ball to be anchored to like come into a dock as you're sailing around the world, you have to be careful on what you're anchored to and around. And I didn't know that then. I do know that now. So with that being said, I'm going to say a version of this story that is not incriminating. But I was at this bar and this dude, we got in an altercation and he punched me very, very hard. I slid back into this chair. I had my mug in my hand and he didn't know who I was with. He didn't know who I was. I didn't care who he was with. He was just some country bumpkin, big dude. And I was going to kill him. I in my heart, I was going to take that glass and I slid back and I mean, he hit me with everything, Corey, that he had and he didn't knock me out. And I slid back and I just looked at him and I looked at who I was with and I just pounded that beer and I was going to smash him in the face with that mug. I really was. And I got grabbed and I got taken out through the back, went back to the apartment that we were hanging out with, hung out with a couple people to calm me down. The rage was so huge in me that I didn't care. I didn't care about anything. I was so demonic, Corey. I was so dark. Like it's hard to, in the quiet place of my own thoughts sometimes, deal with some of the past transgressions that I've done towards people or myself or relationships. And in my alcoholism, I ruined every relationship, whether it be a physical relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, or family relationship, friendship. I was throwing people out of my life like cigarette butts discarded and just crumpling up the case and just throwing away and not caring. And I was transitioning out of that. And I knew I wanted to change. And this situation happened. And I was like, this was the day before Halloween. And I got calmed down, drank myself into like passing out, and then woke up the next morning. It was Halloween. And I'm like, had a big old like welt on my face, you know what I mean? Like almost like hematoma-ish, you know, and you know, almost a black eye. But it wasn't swollen yet because he popped me. And I was just like, I'm gonna go get that guy. Like I was like, he's gonna be back at that bar. I'm gonna go get him. And my favorite was to pregame wine. You know what I mean? I was a bottle and a half. I was a bottle and a half deep of wine. It was probably 4 p.m. maybe at this point. Sun was about to start to set. It had just rained in Bakersfield. So if you've ever been to Bakersfield, it's always just nasty. I don't know what's going on with the weather out there in Bakersfield. But when the rain hits, all the air just purifies and it just cleans up. And all of that just muck gets taken out. And the clouds were out and the sun was shining. And it was just this like, ah. And I went outside to smoke a cigarette or a grit, call it back then. And I was watching The Witch, which is a creepy, just gnarly movie. And it's about when the Puritans, the Christian Puritans like established Christianity and came to America. And then this whole like spiritual, but I had no clue to that of that time. And of course, to the testimony of where I'm at today, of course, it was this super demonic movie, but the Puritans were there. I went out to smoke a cigarette, yada, yada, long story long. And I'm smoking a cigarette and I can't explain the workings of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit, Yahweh the Father, Jesus our Lord, can operate however they want to operate. And I don't know if it was external, Corey. I don't know if it was internal, inside of me. Now I hadn't even come to the Lord yet. So I didn't know what was going on. I'm only saying this in hindsight now because I know what I know now doctrinally. Is there was this voice within me that was just huge. And it was loud, but it was unanimous. And it said, are you living a life that Cody would be proud of? And I was like, and I kind of look, and I'm like, because the sky was breaking and the sun was coming in. It was just this moment. I was just like, what was that? And I didn't know what it was. And I kind of kept smoking. And I even opened the door and I yelled at everybody who was in the apartment. I was like, did you hear that? And they're like, what? Crazy dude. Probably some other words. And I was like, and I closed the door and they were like tripping out. And I was like tripping out. I was like, that was weird. Just kept smoking, took a big old swig. And then it happened again. And it was just, I don't know if it was external or but it was deafening to my soul. Are you living a life that Cody would be proud of? Flicked out that cigarette right at that moment. It was like the Shekinah glory, knowing this now, right? Not then, but just the whole movie scene. The light shined down, everything. Flicked it out, poured out the alcohol out of the bottle, never touched it ever again. And Halloween is the anniversary, and it's been 10 years from that. But that would be the definitive moment of turning from that to that. However, I was prior to that in entrepreneurship, business development scenarios that I was exposed to the gospel for the first time, or a version of that where words from the Bible were actually being taught or preached, not taught, but talked about. And I was sitting in an arena with 17,000 people, and I would hear like a church service. And I'm like, what is this? What's going on? You know, because I had no clue. There was not conversion in my heart. And so there was this process of weaning that the Father was doing to call me to his Son. And I think ultimately through that, getting my internals together brought me closer, pulling me to that. But there was a lot of things that I had to like clean up in my own life that Yahweh, the Father, was cleaning up in my life to bring me to his Son. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's actually a really great question for the fathers or the mothers that are out there and that have lost a loved one. I guess the question is, would that loved one be proud of what you're doing today? And would you meet their expectations? And I think that inner voice really was that first little drop of leaving all these bad habits behind and then being open to changing them out with something more healthy. And being in that entrepreneurship circle, it's good that you were earshot of some of the gospel and some of the motivational and healing and stuff like that. But you mentioned the regeneration for a moment. So what is that? And do you have any examples of regeneration?
Yeah. An example, myself. That's why I joked earlier about I had to kill the boy that I once was to become the man I wanted to be. I've wronged a lot of people. And what I think gets most is they're still looking at the 10-year, 15-year, 20-year version of Craig. And they're going, that guy is this same guy. Now, these people might know the Bible. They might not. I don't know. But we look in the Bible of one of the biggest forerunners of the New Testament was Paul, but he was Saul before he was Paul. He was killing Christians. He was antithetical to Jesus and Christianity. And yet the risen Lord knocked him off his horse, converted him, all of that, and he had a change of heart. He no longer does the things that he once did. And I'm going to give you Craig's Living Translation because we're just here and I'm going to preface this. But Jesus is sitting with Nicodemus, and Nicodemus was the key teacher at that time. And he's like, yo, Jesus, like, what's going on? Like, I don't understand this. A new birth? What does that mean? You can't be born back into your mother and then be reborn. And Jesus is like, no, bro. Like, you don't get this. Nicodemus, aren't you the teacher of the time, the guy that's supposed to know all these things? The key authority, it's a spiritual birth. You have to be born again. And it's born in the spirit. And everybody's like, what? He's like, what? And that's where I think people don't understand that the doctrine of regeneration is so essential for a Christian who has come to saving faith. In that change of heart, in that moment, that the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit has, through Jesus's death on the cross, resurrection, and ascension, given me salvation and new life. There is a newness residing into me. John 14, 16 and 17, if you want to look it up. True biblical Christianity is the transition of one's heart to be made new. And not to say that I didn't do those things or that I wasn't that person. I was very much that person. And I have repented for a lot of things. I have talked to a lot of people to ask forgiveness too. So if you're watching this, you're listening to this, and I haven't personally done the steps, you know what I mean? Nah, bro, like I prayed about it. Some people I can't reach out to. And if you're hearing this and I haven't, then I'm sorry. God's changed my heart. And if you don't understand regeneration, you're not going to understand the conversion that has happened in one's heart and one's soul to turn away from the things that they once were doing, to turn to something new. And just to close on that, it's, if you got an issue, you got a problem with me, you know what I mean? Come and talk to me about it. Plus, I probably wanted to talk to you, but I won't. But just know that I pray about it because it's one of the biggest things that I've had to overcome.
Your earshot essentially of biblical verses. And now you're going through the power of regeneration and you're being spiritually reborn in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But as you're kind of struggling, going back and forth, and you're going through this process, how are you dealing with your friends? You've probably hung out with these guys for a long time. So do you still hang out with them? Do you stop hanging out with them? Or what do you do in this situation where now you're a different person and you don't want to do those things anymore?
Remember how I said, I've had to retrain and redo every single thing in my life without alcohol. It's the same thing as I've had to redo everything. I had to cut certain people out of my life. I remember, I'm just going to share this with you. I was back with the homies, and I was kind of raised like Chicano around like some homies, you know what I mean? And we were barbecuing, and it was all about the barbecue, wearing my Raiders jersey. I'm a Raiders fan. I hope that doesn't offend anybody. And I was getting kind of snubbed, and they were like, we were sitting there drinking Corona still, but I wasn't drinking. And I just wanted to hang out. And they're like they were snubbing me hard, bro. They were like, what's up, babe? I was just like, what's up, bro? They're like, homie, you've changed. It's just like, you're supposed to. I was like, we don't know you anymore, man. Like, you've changed, bro. Like, we don't know if we trust you. And I was just like, now these are dudes that I've done things with that I would never admit to. But in my past, but in a flash, I don't know if you ever seen the caterpillar with the butterfly sitting there having coffee or tea, and they're sitting there, and the caterpillar's talking to the butterfly, and the caterpillar's like, hey, bro, you've changed. And the butterfly's like, you're supposed to. The transformation, right? And then the cocoon, right? And then that transformation to create a butterfly. Same thing, just like the power of regeneration. I love my friends. I love my old homies. I love people. Now, there are people that I dislike very much, that I need to stay away from, but I had to cut them out of my life. I had to strategically cut certain relationships, whether it be like physical relationships, emotional relationships, friendships, family relationships. There's certain things where I just got like, I was dealing with this situation, and it even came to head with my own parents as I was coming to Christianity. And this is December of 2020. So I came October 19th, got baptized January 12th, 2020. We're talking, months and a year in that 2020 to 2021, Christmas, I was just like, guys, like, I can't do these superficial relationships anymore. I can't do this like wishy-washy. I want depth. I want meaning. I want a real relationship, because I didn't understand what a real relationship was. And I need more. And I even came to a head with my parents, man. And it was the hardest thing to do, but I knew we couldn't rebuild the foundation, but we had to rebuild the house if we were going to rebuild a relationship, just as an analogy of rebuilding a relationship. But I had to rip that sucker down, man. And I did, but I did it on purpose to rebuild, because I couldn't negate the foundation that was already there. But this establishment that my parents and I had, and my dad specifically, and I love my mom. Mom, you're gonna see, I love you to death. I love her tremendously. And she's never I am about to cry. She has never given up on me. And she's been my biggest cheerleader, and I love her. But for my father and I, my dad and I, to have a relationship, like we had to just tear it down to rebuild.
So you have to do everything from scratch, from building relationships with your family and your friends. But you mentioned you had to cut them out of your life. So how do you cut people out of your life?
It's the hardest thing I've ever done. I have a different situation because of the alcohol and all these things, and knowing that I can't go down to the bar and hang out with people, that helped because I just stayed away from it. Are there people out there that like are probably like, whatever happened to that fool? If I was to be honest, no, because they're still just doing the same thing and they don't care. Because Craig's not buying shots at the bar. I don't think they really actually care because they weren't really my friends, Corey. I had to take an assessment of what a true relationship, friendship was. And then I realized that through this progression of my transition to wanting to cut out alcohol and cut out things, I had to learn these coping skills of like how to cut out. And I know you're like, yeah, but how do you do that? And
How did you do that?
I know, but you said, how do you do that? And I'm like, I don't know how other people are going to do it. How did I do that? I just did it, man. I sometimes it's not calling the people. Sometimes it's having the uncomfortable conversation with the person and say, bro, or like the homies, remember? I'm like, homie, you're different. You changed. I'm like, yeah, bro, but you're supposed to. And I love you, homie. And I love you dearly, but you just can't call me for those things no more. Like, I love you and I'll pray for you. And I just saw some fools the other day. And I was just like, what up? And they didn't want to say what's up, but I still said what's up. But one guy, he had enough respect because he like respected me enough to be like, he gave me like a what's up. But like that feeling of that, like, cool, I'm sorry that like, I'm not around to hang out with you and do your things. Like, I'm sorry if you're offended, but you have to be comfortable getting uncomfortable. And I think that's truly the answer is getting completely comfortable with doing uncomfortable things and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations to expand your capacity, expand your growth. Because outside of your comfort zone, that's when all the growth happens. And it's not usually 100% of change. It's 10% for 100% results. And so finding out that I'm not made of glass, and that by telling something, hey bro, this isn't working. I can't do this anymore. Or just completely ripping myself out of that relationship and being okay with never talking to them ever again. I just had to be okay with that. I cry a lot, Corey, if I was to be honest. I am the biggest baby now that I came to Christianity, dude. I cry all the time. And there was a lot of tears for a lot of people and a lot of relationships that I had to sever because they didn't, not to say, and that's why I'm taking so much time to explain this, is like, it's so hurtful to say that they didn't serve my life, but they weren't serving my life to the man I wanted to be. They served the boy that I once was, the hooligan, the ruffian, the idiot. They didn't serve, not to say that they don't have a seat at the table, but I had to separate myself from that if I wanted to become the man I wanted to be and accomplish certain things. And I think keeping your circle tight in your relationships, even in entrepreneurship, and even now, I have to guard that stuff even more now.
It sounds like it took a lot of difficult conversations, and you had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and just letting people know, like, hey, I'm just not doing this no more. And whatever that looks like afterwards, that's what it looks like, whether it's with friends or family, whether you're not getting invited to barbecues no more or not being close to these friends. Like, you desired to change so much to not go back to that boy version of you, to grow into this man version of you that you are today, that you had to just one person at a time. Hey, this is just not me anymore.
Can I touch on that
Absolutely.
real quick though? But see, a while back you said, what is regeneration? And there's this component that people listening to this, and unless they understand that, they're not going to get it. And you can't explain, is I wasn't alone in that. There was the Holy Spirit working inside of me that is pulling me away from these things. Before, if you want me to get nerdy, until salvation, it was Yahweh the Father pulling me, weaning me, if you will, to his son, Jesus, the Messiah, the Christ. Once there is conversion of salvation, conversion of heart through the Holy Spirit of regeneration to his son, our Lord, then there is the Holy Spirit living within me, guiding me to something that's called sanctification, which is the continuing in the likeness of Christ and becoming more like Christ. So it was the Father weaning me up until that point, and then the Holy Spirit and our Lord positioning me. So it was like, there were times that I had to pray. There was something inside me that I couldn't even explain. And you can't explain to the unbeliever or the person who doesn't understand. That was really illuminating these things that I had helped the whole time to sever those relationships, because it's guiding my heart in a different direction is what I'm trying to say. So it was like, it was almost like it was so easy, but yet hard at the same time, a true juxtaposition.
So you're now going through all this conversion. You're doing all these things, and you're now creating suits. I like what you're wearing today. Very, very cozy. Looks very nice.
Shame. It's a Pendleton. It's not mine. I can't. It's a Pendleton. Pendleton is an amazing company, but just to preface.
Nice. So you go through all that, and then you decide, okay, I'm going to now become not just any tailor, but a bespoke tailor, which is the highest level of tailoring. So what made you jump into making custom suits?
I joke all the time and say, like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, if people go like on the streets, we're in a conversation, you go, hey, what got you into that? I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, what? I was like, I have no clue what I'm doing. I joke, but I'm also serious at the same time. I'm going to try to fast forward this story as fast as I can. I was on the streets. This was back in old Craig, drinking. Craig couldn't keep his job together. Craig was still working in kitchens, was getting fired all the time. I was like, I'll just get another job at another restaurant. Like, I'm so good in the kitchen that like I can just get a job. Well, in a small town, you get fired from enough places for not showing up because you're wasted and still drunk. A word's going to get around, and you're going to find it very hard to find work. And so I burnt through probably like 8, almost 10 restaurants. And it was just like, it was bad. You know what I mean? It was bad. 6 of them were like really, like, that was the pinnacle. But I was homeless. I was on the streets. I didn't want anybody to know. I was always at my friend's house, and he was wondering why I was always at his house. It's because I was sleeping in a tent in the creek behind his house. And I was like coming over, and I was showering at the gym, or I just like showered at his gym. I'm like, oh, hey, I went for a run. Can I like use a shower real quick and change? And I'm like, yeah. And then some people would kind of know that I was like couch surfing or like houseless, you know? And I would say, like, I took my mom to lunch. She took me to lunch. I was negative $250 in my account. The other, like, I only had one account, and I was living nickel to nickel. And I just decided I saw A Knight's Tale. Remember the Heath Ledger movie, A Knight's Tale, where anybody can change their stars. Great movie if you haven't seen it. But I'd watched that. Plus I went to this conference called Elevate. And like, I just kept slamming my hand on the table. I'm going to elevate. I was like, yeah, but Mom, you don't understand. I'm going to elevate. She's like, what does that mean? And I go, I don't know. Like, I still can't spell it, Corey. I don't know. Like, I knew I needed to elevate, and I knew that I needed to do something different. I saw a guy wearing a coat, and he was standing from stage, and he was talking about entrepreneurship. And he said, if I did it, you can do it. And I was like, I'm only half as slow as he is. I can do this. And I saw him put on the cape. I saw him put on the coat and kind of just walk a little taller. I said, you know what? I told my mom, I was like, I'm going to go get a job down at the suit shop down the street, the old man shop in town called Patrick James. Shout out to Patrick James for giving me their start. And I talked my way into that job. My mom laughed at me. She's like, look at you. I think I might have had a beer or two before I came to lunch too. You know, this was 2014. And I was determined. I was just like, I'm going to go get that. So I went and I talked my way into that job. anyways, I got taught the trade there, but it wasn't full custom bespoke, or even made to measure / sartorial clothing. It was just a retail shop. They did custom, but it wasn't like custom today. There's a lot of mills. I don't know if I want to name or places, but H. Freeman, Hickey Freeman, a lot of these huge giants that back in the 80s, back in the 90s, like they were movers and shakers. They were doing true custom, made to measure or bespoke, because that's a watered down term in the industry. And we do an American bespoke. I'm still not good enough yet to put a sleeve head on, to cut and all that on myself to do that. But we contract, I hire, we employ the best people in the world to produce garments in the best places in the world, given your finance. And so I learned that trade, and then I got sold into selling Mercedes. That was a good experience, but a bad experience because of that, because we suited all those guys. I went and I took 4 months to find out that I hated car sales. Everything that I learned from Najee was take your eyes off the money and the money will come. Everything in this entrepreneurship was take time, build a relationship, long game, longevity. And then I get dropped into car sales because they're like, oh, because we sold them suits, right? So I was already looked fly, and they're like, roll out the red carpet. Oh, you're going to make like $500,000 a year. You're going to do all this stuff. You got the gift of gab, like da, 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 da. And I'm like, okay, like, let's do this. And I got dropped into a Shark Tank, which guys were undercutting me or middling me out in the industry for $100 mini on a car. Because they're on the front half, they're on the back half, and I get middled out doing all the work. And I was still pugnacious, bro. I remember this one time with two dudes, and we were on the floor. This was after a meeting, and I looked at him, and he cut me out, bro. We were gonna go, we were gonna get it on. I said, "Hey, bro, I gotta see you out back here. I gotta talk to you about something." And we were ready to throw, and it was not an environment that I wanted to be in. Now, remember, I preface that like I was still trying to be polished. I'm still not perfect, but I've learned enough through these trials and tribulations and struggles to become better. But I knew that I could sell. I made a lot of money in 4 months for that owner. And I was just like, what am I doing? And I went to the back, I clocked out, went to the back. They ruined this deal, 7-car deal. It was huge. And he said, well, if you don't like it, you can just leave. And I started to drive out. He comes running out. He's like, where are you going? And I said, I'm out. He's like, well, I didn't mean it. I said, I did. And we just kind of parted ways. And I was driving down the road past my friends at the beach. And I came to myself about 45 minutes later down the road in Buellton. I just started driving, bro. I was cranking the music. I was just like, what am I going to do? An aha moment. Yet another moment in my life of transition to what were those moments like? And I just said, you know what? Like I ended up in Buellton. I had no clue, a lot of tears. And I pulled over and I said, well, I got a chunk of change. I know I have some relationships from this prior suit game that I was in. Why don't you just start your own business? I had to shift, Corey. I didn't have a possibility. I literally was at the end of my rope with 0 and 0. And then even as I started in that transition, I was getting away from alcohol, and like by God's grace, man, you know what I mean? Like my mom, dude, never stopped believing in me, bro. You know what I mean? And I started just putting two things, one foot in front of the other. They say in hockey all the time is like, how'd you win? I said, you just move your feet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just move your feet. Well, how'd you do that? You just move your feet. So,
yeah. So, from being homeless, then you talked yourself into a tailor shop, essentially. You got the experience, the mentorship there. And then you left for Mercedes because they promised you something more. And then management wasn't the best. So you dipped out and you're driving down the road and you're thinking to yourself, well, now I'm hitting rock bottom again. I'm homeless.
Yeah.
Now I'm basically homeless again. So not in a sense, but you don't have a job. So you're taking whatever money you have left and you're like, I remember that guy. He had that suit on. I did kind of like that. And you know what? I'm just going to give this a shot. Yeah. So you have nothing else to lose at this point. If you're at rock bottom, the only place to go is up.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
You started doing it sounds like, you pull out your phone. So you're doing some research, you're figuring it out and you're putting two together and you're just starting. So how did you get your first customer then? I mean, you are now trying to do this on your own, but who's going to give you a chance?
So it's so funny that you say that, because I go back as you're externally processing that, I go back to that moment and I go, oh man, like, wow, like there's so much more to the story, but it's like, I put myself in there and I go, man, how did I even do that? So go back to COVID. COVID was essential, I think, in a lot of ways, not only coming to my spiritual walk, but coming into my business, because I left the dealership. I had some coin, but I knew that I needed to continue coin coming in to fuel this endeavor. So I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I got a job serving drinks and waiting tables at a golf course. I don't know why that was so hard, but it was like the nicest golf course in the air. So I strategically placed that and I said, hey, I built this relationship with a dude. And I said, hey bro, can I come and work for you? And I was the only dude surrounded by a bunch of gals, the only rooster in the hen shop. And it was rough, but I was like, this is a different caliber of client. This is a different person. Tommy Lee Jones golfs there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, oh man, if I could just meet Tommy Lee Jones, you know what I mean? One of my favorite actors of all time. I'm just going to be around a different clientele. I can like kind of work this in, work this out. But I didn't know if I was really going to do the suit shop or if I was really going to I didn't know. Am I going to bartend? So I was half and half. And why do I bring up COVID? So I had a guy through the connections that I used to, I overheard him talking about getting married at the golf course. And I said, oh, well, hey, like I'm trying to start a business. I'm very like, I'm going to approach that. Like I'm a 3 foot rule. If you're 3 feet in front of me, I'm going to talk to you, which didn't work because I had to work on running the rest of the food. And so I was always getting caught for talking to too many people. Long-winded, sorry. But he was like, oh, and I was like, well, hey, I would love to talk about this after. I used to work for a suit shop. I'm starting my own business. And boom, I did my first deal. I like to transition into COVID because through October 19, I got in the wedding industry. I was challenged there. But right then from 18 to 19 was a very pinnacle time to me being sartorial clothier and getting into the custom realm that I didn't learn at Patrick James, but I knew I wanted to learn. And they were like, we don't do that. It's not your business. You know, it's not your business. We don't do that. It's not your business. We don't do that. I'm like, well, why don't I just make it my own business? I met one of the manufacturers I work with today through that time. And so I hit the ground running October 2019 because Men's Warehouse, that's right, I will blast you. I usually say they're not here to defend themselves. But my local San Luis Obispo Men's Warehouse manager, you know who you are, said that I would never make it in the wedding industry. And I don't know if you know anything about me, but if you're going to give me like that middle finger is the biggest, like go for it for a true entrepreneur. Every no is a yes. And so I was like, oh yeah, hold my beer, watch me. No, just kidding. And so I signed up for a wedding expo, October 19. And I told him, I was like, I want to be across the way from Men's Warehouse. And they said, no, we're going to put you. And I'm like, no, I literally want to be staring right at them because I wanted to prove a point. And we were directly across from Men's Warehouse. And they actually, funny story, they kind of came over and tried to steal my models, my dudes. They're just my friends because they're like, hey, why don't you come over and work for us? And they're like, bro, we're just Craig's friends. We're not salesmen. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. So I thought that's a funny part of the story. I signed 25 contracts. Have you ever been on a roller coaster, Corey?
Yeah.
So you start building up the momentum to go down your first hill. And then that first loop is fun, but the first loop is to gain momentum for the second loop, right? Because it's always bigger and badder. And so January, I'm like, happy day, dude. October, November, December, we're coming into the new year. Nobody plans that small of a wedding in that short of time. So January, 25 contracts that like, Bizing, I got this contract with this custom manufacturer. We're going to do custom now. I'm not just going to do what I call ready-made, which is off the rack, which is just you walk into the store and you put a shell on them and then you alter that. We're going to do fully. I'm going to measure you. We're going to pick from swatches and then we're going to build something from scratch, which man, did I struggle. And it's taken a long time and a lot of money to screw up to be as good as I am today, which I'm still learning. I'm not the best, but I signed 25 contracts and I'm like, okay, cool. This is awesome. And then it's like, man, and we're off to the races. January starts. At the end of January, I had my first couple like touches of appointments. Cause in business, you got to have like touches with people before you actually land that sale. And so I'm just trying to do everything right. And then, February started and we hit that first loop in February and we're like, yes. And then March comes around. Remember we hit our first loop and we're March. And then March 17th, what happened? 2020.
COVID.
The world shut down. Completely shut down. And brother, I'm upside down. I use the analogy of a roller coaster because it's literally like, wee, and then wee, and I'm upside down. And I literally upside down because I don't do this anymore. That's why if you're going to work with me, know that if you're going to negotiate a split, like pay up front, and I don't front anything anymore. Why? Because I still am sitting on fabric from COVID. I'm still sitting on hurt feelings from people who said, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore. And I literally like produced their stuff, or I pushed it with the money that I had to front it. Contracts don't matter sometimes. Things don't matter sometimes. Like it's just hard. So like now is like, if I'm going to do it like a draw or like a split, it's always going to cover everything that I'm doing on the front end. I just can't. I'm still sitting on fabric from that. And I always said when I was building this big business entrepreneurship that I'm going to retire by I'm 40. I'm going to retire from a job by 40 years old. Well, business, self-employment, I did retire from a job. I retired for working for somebody at 40 and I never looked back. So maybe there's that little bit of pride that, when it gets dark, you know what I mean? That I still have to persevere and move forward. But I never went back to a job. I said, you know what? I'm going to make a way. I'm going to do this. And I pushed through COVID and it was very hard and it was very scary and it was very dark. And I was still trying to operate, but I had to ditch, dive, dodge, duck, dip, dodge, all of the 5 Ds of people and who couldn't talk to operate these backyard weddings and then operate in manufacturing because the world was closed.
Man, it's like every entrepreneur story. You are working for yourself, but you're working for someone else at the same time. And you don't really know how it's going to go, but you're on this golf course. You're dropping hints like, hey, by the way, I can create a suit for you.
Yeah.
And that's how you finally land your first deal. And after that, you kind of gave that roller coaster analogy. Mm-hmm. One thing leads to another, and slowly, drip by drip, you get another customer, a wedding, a backyard wedding, and then COVID happens. Everything shuts down. So in secrecy, you're like, keep it on the down low.
Yeah.
Go ahead and do these backyard weddings. And so you're still kind of churning through all of that. But one of the big lessons was that don't front load the costs for it, because when COVID did happen, you also had a huge setback. People weren't paying you.
Yep.
But the commitments just got canceled. The contracts didn't hold weight. And now you're in the hole and you're like, never again. So now big eye opener, but you're not letting that defeat you. You're still saying, I'm still going to make this happen. COVID happens. You're no longer working at that golf course. Now at this pivotal point, you're like, do I go all in on myself? Mm-hmm. And that answer was yes.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is like, all right, I'm just going to make it happen. What geographic regions were you servicing? I mean, I know you're in your area, but then I think you even fly to other states to do some of this stuff too. So if someone's in a different state, do you still service them, or what geographic areas do you service?
Well, that's now. So flash in the pan from then to now is drastically different. Coming through COVID and moving into that, I was just in my area. And it wasn't till I would say 2022 or 2023. I think it was 23. There's this publication, shout out to Sonia, Iron and Diamond, and they have publications. So California Wedding Day is this magazine, bridal magazine, and they have an awards. And prior to that, a gentleman, Percy Salas, who lives in Buellton, Santa Ynez area. I love you, Percy. He and my other friend Mahan with him, Mahan London, who owns Vogue Candles. I mean, she's doing candles for the Kardashians. Like, look her up. She's amazing. I both met them at a place that I wasn't supposed to be on the back half of COVID. This is like 2021, 2022, where things were hush hush. but still kind of operating. And I met them, and I cry every time I talk about Percy. He just opened my eyes to this whole, he was like, you got to get out of San Luis Obispo, because geographically, like, there's nothing going on in my sphere. In that time, they were shut down. They were not operating. Venues were still pushing from 2020 to 2021, 2021 to 2022, or being pushed out from 2020 to 2022. Well, I'm jumped. There was nothing for me. I even had to rebrand because people forgot who I was. All of this work coming in from 19, like, Craig who? Endeavored what? We don't know that brand because people forgot how to drive coming out of COVID. So I met Percy Salas Mahan, but it was more Percy that he was like, hey bro, there's this whole thing, this whole world out there of this industry. Now Percy does international and he speaks on stages, and he's always in Istanbul. He's always at Percy Salas events. Go look him up at Percy Salas events. I love the dude. Love him with my soul. And he was like, Craig, you got to get out there. So California Wedding Day, I get nominated. What? What's this nomination? I'm like, hey Percy, should I go to this thing? He's like, absolutely. And I'm like, okay, so I'll buy a ticket. It's all the state, it's all California, but then it's geographically located in your region in the wedding industry for your vendor or creative partner of what you do in the industry. And I get nominated in 2022. I get nominated in 2023. I get nominated in 2024. But in 2024, it's statewide. They take away like the small places. They take away my area for menswear. So now I'm statewide. I'm nominated in the final 3 of the finals for statewide menswear. I lose to Fire Trucks, which is okay. But at that time, like in those years, I start seeing that like I have to get out of my own sphere of area. And so I start networking with all of these wedding planners. Percy's like, dude, you need to get out there. You need to start getting around these other people, these other things. Why don't you strategically place yourself with people? Why don't you suit this guy or put your clothes on this guy who's in the limelight, who's seen stuff, who's doing international destination? Which leads me, if you search my platforms, you've seen Chris J. Evans. Shout out to Chris J. Evans Photography, my best friend, my dude, award-winning destination wedding photographer. Met him in 2023, I believe, California Men's Day, or California Wedding Day. And I just approached him and said, hey, I want to take you to the next level. I know where you're going. I want to take you there because I know where you want to head. But I think you just a little bit, 10% for 100 results. Let's do that. And so we started working together, and he brought me into different spheres of different wedding planners and different people who are doing just stuff around the world that like makes your jaw drop. And I've strategically placed myself now over that time in 2023, all of 2024, coming into 2025, I have strategically planned and positioned myself to be seen in areas outside of just my home, because I would never be where I'm at today if I just stayed home. It's crazy. You know, I get on a plane, you know, being a homeless kid, like I don't literally cry anymore because people look at me and they're like, as I'm like, I used to, as I'm sitting on a plane and I'm like, what is going on? I'm flying across the country to go make a suit for somebody. If I didn't be exposed to that, Steve Jobs said, how do you know what you want unless you know what you can have? And then I ramp that up and say, if you don't even know what's available, I didn't know what was available. And so the wool gets pulled, and this whole international, you know, destination wedding planners, wedding planners from the East Coast, I'm flying out to go service their grooms. It's crazy, man, of where I'm at today. I don't have a shop. I don't have an actual physical location. And some people are not okay with that. And I'm like, I'm not paying 10 grand in overhead. I can give you a deal. It's like, oh, this guy's like selling whatever. And he's selling. No, like I can do whatever I want with my time and money. And I'm not paying 10 grand for a shop. Why is so-and-so charging that amount of money? Because they're paying for overhead. They're paying for employees. They're paying for that. Now, we do some of the finest fabrics in the world. We do some of the best milled fabrics produced in some of the best handmade facilities on the planet. We have access to Vicuña through a couple different manufacturers, Piacenza, Scabal, Dorme, you name it. You know, we have Vicuña, which is the most rarest fiber in the world. Look it up. It's a cute little animal. $25,000 a coat. Hermes is selling a suit for $110,000.
Wow.
It's mind blowing, right? But people are willing to pay that for that specific fabric. But Holland and Sherry, Dorme, Scabal, these luxury Piacenza, Loro Piana, you name it. Ariston. Oh man, I love Ariston. Ariston's rad. But I mean, we're talking, $10,000 suits, $6,000 suits. But they're like, well, Craig, why is it so much money? I'm like, because of the quality, not just the fabric, but the quality of the garment and how it's made and how it fits and what really goes into it. There's a lot that goes into why it is that expensive. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. You strategically place yourself into these partnerships to be exposed to other people that might need your suit services, like the wedding industry and other high profile people that may be traveling to other states and wearing the suits that you make for them. Do you ever run into a situation where you're flying out to a customer and you're doing whatever you're doing, and then you're like, oh my God, I need something and I don't have it with me? Does that ever happen?
Yes. Yes, many times. And it sucks. You want to be the master of your craft and you want to produce perfection. Sometimes we just drop the ball and we didn't order a tie or we didn't order cufflinks. I think most of the part, and where I'm constantly learning from every single client interaction that I have, how I can be better. I love feedback, even if it's negative feedback, because I learn where I can be better. So like, don't be afraid to give negative feedback. But in that being said, hidden expectations from the client to the producer, those kill me all the time. What does that mean? Because there's multiple different scenarios for that. We contract a certain situation that person was very specific on the front end about. We produce that, say a year goes on and that person had delayed a year from their wedding. Well, that person's not the same size. Say they go cut 60 pounds. That dude is a different dude than what we measured when we produced the suit a year prior. And we designed a shirt, we designed these things. And he goes, a year later, he goes, oh, well, I would like a refund because the suit's not going to fit me like a custom suit. And I say, sir, you were 60 pounds heavier with that custom suit. You're not the same dude. I'm a small business owner. There are hills that I'm willing to die on. And sir, you lost 60 pounds. Your weight is not the same. You designed a shirt that we produced the shirt said given contract. He's like, oh, well, I want a tuxedo shirt. I'm like, okay, with stud buttons. I'm like, okay, well, that's not what we made a year prior. Well, Craig, you don't understand. What am I, an idiot? You don't think I would have ordered a tuxedo shirt? I go, sir, with the best intentions, you ordered what you ordered and you have what you have. If you would like a shirt, we can order that shirt. You see what I'm saying? These hidden expectations where the client thinks or forgets something else. Oh, we ordered cufflinks. I ordered this certain tie. Sir, no, you did not. So it's like, I have to be so strategic on being so beating a dead horse on certain things, coming into the deal, as well as on the contractual side of things of what is in that actual deal, that it gets really, really hard because, if I forget it, or if I have to land on the sword and say, hey buddy, we dropped the ball. We did this wrong. I apologize. Here we go.
It's not so much that you forget anything when you're going out and you're flying out and you need some tool, or you're missing a fabric, or you're missing a button or anything like that. And you're like, where do I get this from now? It's more about the customer changing their expectations and changing the contract. Is there like a 10% wiggle room or ways to customize things to allow for some? I know you're not going to be able to do 60 pounds is significant.
You drop 20 pounds, 15 pounds, you personally. Does your fit change?
Absolutely. Everything changes.
Absolutely. In the waist, in the chest.
Yeah.
So it's like safeguard is I can't measure the guy that you're going to be.
Is there anything else that people should know about that is really going to throw that whole suit off, if beyond the weight that would mess it up? I guess the weight's really the only thing, huh? I mean, it's a little bit of pounds you could adjust for, but
there's a couple things.
Everything else could be a change order if there's enough lead time.
Have a winter suit, have a summer suit. If you know that you're cutting weight,
the weather.
I have guys, not just the temperature, right? Because we start getting into fabrics and nerdy stuff like that. Weights. I like to use a lot of like year-round weights. Weight are a thing. If you don't know about suiting, you don't know about fabric. That's something. But what I mean is having a size for when you're chunky, have a size for when you're skinny. So if you're fluctuating weight that much, with most guys that cut and it's usually the athletic dude that wants to cut weight or he's bulking, right? I have clients that have 2 closets. They have 2 sizes of closet. They have this size for when they're big and this size for when they're small. And they just know that and then just wear appropriately each size suiting. Now that's a financial component. That's a different, you're suiting 2 different guys. We put tabs on the side of some of the pants where we can manipulate some within, I'd say about 1 inch to 1.5 inches fluctuation in like a waist, but in a coat, you don't have anything unless you're using a high stretch fabric that's going to give you a little bit of snug of movement, because I run so lean on my fit that things aren't gonna, if you're gonna bulk 2 inches in diameter, if you're growing that big in that a short amount of time, you're probably on something. And we can't suit the guy you're gonna be. We have to suit the guy that you are.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense though. I mean, for people that have an idea of where they might be or buying suits throughout the passage of time, for when they are a little bit bigger, buy that suit. When you are a little bit skinnier, buy that suit. Mm-hmm. And when you're somewhere in the middle, buy that suit as well. Yeah. That way you could have something to wear in every occasion and you could have the best quality suit. You could always look great and you could always have something that's customized to your body and tailored. So really the takeaway there is for the customer that's buying a suit, you got to think about more than just that one suit. It's not a one and done type of thing.
No.
Think about the, like, plan ahead for that second and third one, because you're going to need it. Hey, and maybe get a couple different colors.
Absolutely. And that's kind of leading. I wanted to finish because we talked about the winter weight versus summer weight. So the weight of the fabric, we talked about the size, right? And then what about the wearability? What about when you talk about getting a couple different colors or a couple different things is, pairing or mix matching like 2 suits, 3 suits with a top and a bottom, getting an extra trouser on the fabric. What am I saying? You're going to burn through your pants faster than you burn through your coat because you're sitting down, the fabric's rubbing. So guys who know, and if you know, will buy an extra trouser with that suit. So that way there's not a dye difference. There's not a design difference. There's not a tone difference between the colors that run off the front of the bolt, even to the back of the bolt, still on one bolt, if you know what I'm talking about, of that same. Or trying to match. Have you ever seen that black coat with the non-matching black pants that you have because you're just trying to put 2 blacks together, but it's not the same black? Mm-hmm. They'll order another trouser because when their one trouser wears out, they have an extra set that matches still the top coat, because your coat's going to outlast your trousers. So it's thinking about that as getting an extra trouser, maybe learning how to, and then where the education side of things is how to wear some of these things, how to wear mixed matching trousers and coats and sport coats to create longevity in your wear, where you're not, if you wear the same suit, I don't care how good it is or how durable it is. There's guys that come out and spend $6,000 a suit and they're wearing Skabal Super 220s, luxurious fabric, and they're like, oh, I spent $8,000 on this suit. Bro, if you wear that suit 3 times a week or more than 4 times a month, you're gonna burn that. It's not, that fabric is not to wear it that much. You need a workhorse fabric, So maybe you're the guy that wants to spend the money on the top. Well, then spend something in a super super 80s or super 100s, like durable fabric with a little bit of stretch, and just get your trouser colors with something that you can put together some looks. So now you're dealing with a sport coat with a trouser that's less expensive to get in on the trousers because you're going to burn through them anyways. Does that make sense on kind of different columns of how to look for and what to expand to save yourself on the financial? But it's also one of those things is like, I think on the last is what is something that you can get around. I think also the financial expectation is hard for people too, is what is it going to cost to get into a custom suit? Not just like things of, what if my weight gain, troubles and trials is people's expectation on price of what goes into a custom cloth and garment produced rather than a ready-made situation also.
If someone today is looking or thinking about a custom suit, but they're worried about costs, what would you tell them?
Right out the gate, I was going to say, talk to me behind closed doors because I make deals for everybody. I can do what I want with my time and my money. I take an entry-level guy that's getting out of college and I look at him and he can't afford multiple $1,000 suit. Okay. So we start him in an entry-level program. I know over time, he's going to become the guy in his 30s, coming into his 40s that can afford that. But I've earned that business. I've earned that trust over time to get to that. So we'll start you at entry level. We have two different spheres. We have ready-made, which is off the rack. I call it ready-made. It's fancy, it's bougie. And then you have custom, okay? Made to measure, bespoke, sartorial, okay? Both levels, we have an entry level and then we have a luxury version in both levels. I have a Loro Piana, okay? Italian, fancy, ready-made garment sitting in a warehouse in Vegas, sizes, couple color runs, hand finished that I've already produced, hand finished garment. So that means the armholes, all of this is hand working. There's a difference between machine made and then handmade. Preface that it's not a full handmade garment. It is hand finished. So there's hand finishing, but there's a lot of work in that is a very elevated luxury garment that I could have to you in a day and a half, 2 days. Or I have just your off the rack, low level, very, very entry level, $250 garment. There's spheres on both sides. So it's like, I always say, what do you need? What is the event? What do you need? What are you looking to spend? And I'm not trying to line them up with their budget for my budget to match their budget. Because I know there's people in the industry that do it. Oh, well, what can you spend? And then I got to ride you right up to the line. I'm like, bro, I'm just so straightforward these days. I'm like, homie, I have $10,000 fabric. I have vicuña. I could show, I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste your time showing you stuff that you can't afford. Give me a price range. Give me a range of where you want to hunt and let's see if we can get it in there. And they go, and I go, okay. And then I go, well, where do you think custom starts? And they're like, oh, like $500. And I'm like, well, $500, like you should probably go shop at Indochino. You should probably go shop at Menswear House, but you're not going to get custom. And I do want to touch on this. There's a difference between custom and customizations. If you run a program that is, you can pick your liner and pick your button and pick your fabric, and they measure you to alter shells that are already produced. That is customizations. There are programs that do that in big manufacturing spots or storefronts that go, yeah, we do custom. They're watering down the industry of me taking 26 to 32 measurements of you, of your posture and everything, Corey. And I am from scratch. We're putting that down on a pattern. We're drawing a pattern out. We're cutting that or a first fit garment to see fit. And then we're going back and we're constructing and deconstructing that to then produce a garment that is, remember, we can't do it perfect, but we're producing a garment there that we're block patterning and patterning a pattern for you that we store. That's different than picking this and picking that and altering a garment that's already been made. I was in Waikiki at Armani and it was raining and I needed someplace to hide. And there's Oahu, Waikiki. I mean, in that mall, that's just the high-end mall. And this dude was like showing me, he didn't know what I did for a living. And he was showing me, oh, this is $70,000. I was like, what's your most expensive suit? He's like, $70,000 for a suit. I was like, what? Knowing what I know now, just the fabric costs $7,000, $10,000. So, or maybe $3,500. We don't know, profit. But all they're doing is altering shells is what I found out. So at the end of the day, even this huge company selling this exquisite thing, it's all smoke and mirrors, bro. They're taking a shell, they're taking 6 measurements, and they're altering an already produced garment and selling it as custom. And that's a huge beef. So everybody's expectations on what is custom, what is customizations. Well, I can go get this for this. I can go get that for that. Cool, man. Like go shop somewhere else if that's really what you want to do. I mean, what I do is very, very different. How we deliver a garment and what we put into a garment along with fit and expertise and education, and then showing up on your wedding day to help you through that, to deliver if something goes wrong. I mean, Men's Warehouse isn't showing up to your wedding. like they're not going to help you out. Yeah, you can transactionally go back if something's not right. Same thing with us, but at the same time, like the canvassing, the sewing of your garment, how it's produced is what you're really, really paying for.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's actually a good point. Customization versus custom. People that often sell custom really is not custom. They're pre-made suits and they're just customizing a little bit, tailoring it to making it fit for that occasion. Whereas from the ground up, starting from zero, you're taking all the measurements, 26 to 30, and dialing it all in for that one individual. So truly custom, and not customization. But with all this suit talk, I mean, what about animals? Do you ever make suits for pets?
Wait, suits for pets? No. Now that you said it, we might look into it. I have not. We've done some. We've done some bow ties for some pets, but no, I've never made anything for a pet, nor would I know how to. But maybe we have an avenue right now, Corey. Suits for pets. Now you get my brain tripping, and I'm like, oh.
I mean, I'm sure with all of these
walking a dog down the aisle, maybe we are in a huge gold mine right now.
I mean, there's dog weddings. I've seen them like marry dogs, horses. And they start, horses too. Because that would be crazy. You put a horse in the suit. Man, what would that look like?
Yeah, but I mean,
and then you have the wedding dress of the other horse, and you have this fake wedding.
How much are you going to pay for a suit for your dog?
There are people that if I had the money to spend for an animal wedding and I had 2 dogs, I would marry them just for fun. I would just make a whole thing out of it. Why not?
We will talk off camera on this endeavor more.
Well, there you go. I planted a seed. You have this new niche now, whole new world open. Put that in one of your offerings. If someone wants to make a custom suit for their animal, hey, EndeavoredThreads, you know where to go.
Don't call us yet for that. We'll call you for that one. We're going to put that in the think tank.
Okay. So one of the things you also do is that you make some of these suits for inmates, the homeless, and the veterans. And so why do you go out of your way for people that are trying to reintegrate back into society?
I'm a product of my own system. I got in trouble. I needed a second chance. I was on the streets. I saw how I could elevate myself. I also, Corey, I put it on and I felt, I don't say empowered is the right word. That's why I call it like a cape. Like I put the cape on and I'm just like, yeah, like I walk a little taller. That's why we stitch confidence. We stitch self-image. We stitch relationships, not just cloth. I want the guy, the gal, whether they're getting out of the prison system, they need a new start, whether they're veterans and they need a new start, or whether they're veterans on the streets or whether they're on the streets and they truly want to get out of the muck and out of where they're at to change the trajectory of their life. Absolutely will help you. Absolutely will get out there. Now, we don't do custom for everybody, usually an off the rack situation for that. I mean, I would love to be shelling out $2,500 suits for everybody. Hey, come and get your free suit from EndeavoredThreads. Like what? You know what I mean? But we will do what we can to help you feel better, to walk taller, to give you the confidence to get out there and get in front of somebody to change your life, to get a job, to get housed, to get these things, to feel better about yourself. Absolutely. But that's really where it comes from, a very hard struggle of my own life to operate in that sphere of being out on the streets, needing a second chance, or multiple second chances of having a record, doing these things, being a bad dude, to really have a heart to transition to help others.
If I could infer a little bit, it's just being there to help someone else when you also needed the help at one point. It kind of has left a mark on you where you have a heart to help those that are actually in need. Not the people that are just saying, I want this, but people that are actively trying to get off the streets from homelessness back into a job. That's where you come and you fit in, and you'll do whatever you can to help them, because that's where you were at once. That's a really great component of EndeavoredThreads. I really appreciate that.
But we just want to come alongside people.
Yeah.
I think if it wasn't for me, the people that came alongside me and helped reach me out of the gutter, and I have some guys in different spheres that I'm working with. And I just have one condition. Well, first, we don't talk about Fight Club, but number two is just help somebody do it too. Once you've done it, pay it forward and help somebody get out of the position that you're at into the position that you're trying to go to.
Craig, we there's so much more that we could talk into,
Absolutely.
but I do want to ask, is there anything specific that we haven't dived into about tailoring that you want to discuss?
Well, there's a difference between tailoring, suit making, sales, and all of it. So it's like we're well-rounded clothiers. You know, I could always be better at tailoring, but yeah. So I just wanted to really like focus on that. Is like everybody calls me a tailor, but I'm not that savvy of needle and thread. But we're cutting patterns. We're doing some stuff. We're getting there. I'm in design. We are designing products, garments for your lifestyle and business, weddings, imaging, branding. We talk about branding with these big corporate guys because we're in the corporate sphere. Is everything is the image and everything needs to be brandable for you. So we're kind of hitting this avenue of stylist. So not alone just being a groom stylist in the wedding industry where we're showing up and we're helping the grooms and we're hand walking them through with the groomsmen, design on what it looks like, holding the florals, the colors, the backdrop in account for designing a look. But we're also designing full wardrobes and capsule wardrobes for high corporate people for their image. People NDA that I can't talk about of why they look so good. Because trust me, if there was a couple of them that I could put out there, you probably know who I was and everybody else would know who I was. But we're just trying to do it naturally. But we're in design. We take into account all of that. Posture, looks, color, tone. We fall into design.
Yeah, no, that's a great clarification. You know, people probably have, especially for those that don't know much about the industry, the first thing that comes to mind is tailorship, but really it's more of the design, it's cutting the fabric, it's the styling, and making them look good all in that process. So we'll just call them all synonyms at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of the above.
Yeah.
So no, that's great. And was there any specific area that maybe we wanted to dive into? Or
I don't know.
Did we get a good, well-rounded overview of the industry?
I feel if somebody wanted to know what the essence of EndeavoredThreads behind the scenes, kind of what is a suit maker? What is a suit maker? What is going on? I think we covered it. Cause I mean, most of it really is, bro, this is my testimony. And it's really like, why am I doing what I'm doing? It's not what do I do and how do I do it? I mean, why? To make money. How? We measure you when we manufacture. A lot of people out there go, oh, we make suits. We're so much different. Now you use probably the same 3 people that everybody else in the world uses, and you produce something to fit somebody cloth and they wear it. Like just fundamental, you know what I mean? But the why, like, why am I doing what I'm doing? I like to evangelize. I like to evangelize the lost. A smart man told me, do whatever gives you the most amount of money in the least amount of time. And then go do what you want with your time and money. Because you can't take it with you. And what you're really sacrificing is your time. So you want to buy your time back. So I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if it's the right way to do it, but I found something that you can sell, because everybody's selling something either for yourselves or for somebody else, trade or service, building your dream, or you're building somebody else's dream. And I found something that I could generate some profit, some retail profit in, that I'm giving back to through a couple different avenues, like with, you know, the homeless and all that, the social aspects of things, trusting guys, you know, they trust me with their image. And I'm like, okay, but we're also so like scriptures. If you're, you know, of faith, we do little love notes for weddings that make it very personable for people. But it's like that little, you look down and you see your little like phrase, you know, like Mahan London, we talked about her, she says, sharing the light. And it reminds her every time that she's out there, she has the candle company, she's sharing the light. And it gives her that armor, you know, and it's really adding those little things into that to really just push forward, building self-confidence around people. So there's so much to behind the scenes what we do, and why we do what we do is to truly just help people come up, to help the underdog, the guy who's in the gutter, the guy who doesn't know where he's at, walk a little bit taller, talk a little bit better. And if we can help suit you in a way and build this, not to say that it's this fake thing, but it does add a sense of confidence to you. You know, it does give you a little bit more.
Craig, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah.
What are your handles and websites and all that good stuff?
So I did this strategically, and I don't think people get it. My email, Craig@EndeavoredThreads.com. That's who am I? And then you got the Instagram handle @EndeavoredThreads. And then you have EndeavoredThreads.com. So my name is Craig Brewington. I'm the creative director of Endeavored Threads. You can call me if you want to, 805-305-7347. I did that one time. The guy goes, "Did you just give your phone number out?" I'm like, absolutely, man. You know what I mean? I want people to find me. If you're a call person, call me. If you're an email me, Craig@EndeavoredThreads.com, EndeavoredThreads, threads.com, @EndeavoredThreads.com, Instagram handle. It's probably the best place to see what we're doing tangibly, to see like a lot of reels and a lot of visual things, because everybody's searching with their eyeballs for weddings or for suiting. And then the website, EndeavoredThreads.com.
No, that's great. We'll get all of the social media handles. We'll put them in the description below. We'll capture your phone number. We'll
Hey, man.
Your phone number down there.
It's on the card. Might as well, you know? I mean, if you're going to call, you're going to call me. I don't have a shop. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least send a text and get the conversation going.
Absolutely.
So, that's great. Craig, we have the last guest leave a question for the next guest. And the question that we have for you is, what is one achievement you're proud of that reflects how you've grown compared to who you were last year?
How I've stretched myself, my heart, my person by shedding my own flesh and shedding my pride and shedding myself to be humble, to be submissive, to be obedient in multiple different realms has produced a newness in me that I'm not afraid of at this point now. I was afraid of earlier. There's so much power to obviously the faith walk that I'm on, but it's really just being okay with not knowing things, being okay with asking questions, being just truly humbling myself. And I go back to scripture, dude. I'm going to end with this. Jesus humbled himself unto death on the cross. I look at that in Philippians 2. I believe it's 6 through 8 and then 9 through 11. That in that humbling, in that deity, he was given a name above every name, which is Lord. And I think knowing that I don't lord my own life and that Christ the Messiah is Lord over my life, you will either bend the knee or he will crush it in front of you or in front of him. And just the personal growth of learning how to operate, being humble, even with these different levels of trajectory of the business, am I still going to be humble? Even if I'm going to make the most money that I've ever made next year or this year, am I still going to be humble? Am I going to be obedient to what I hold dearest to my heart? Am I going to be true to myself in the mirror? Am I going to be true behind closed doors as well as in front? Am I going to be the same person? And he will trust you with little until he can trust you with a lot. And I've had so much personal growth. What is the je ne sais quoi? What is the essence? What is the thing? It's personal growth, dude. If you say that you've stopped growing or you know everything, bro, you're a joke. Like, I'm never going to stop learning. I don't get it right every single time. I'm building the plane as I fly it. I learn all the time. I learn stuff from this 8-year-old I hang out with. I just go, wow, I never even thought about that. Like, wow, I just learned a core life lesson that I need to adopt into my life. And that's humbling.
No, that's great. Personal growth. Yeah, I think we could all use a little humbling of ourselves at times.
Mm-hmm.
Craig Brewington, thank you again for joining us on this episode of the Key Concepts podcast. I really appreciate you coming by.
Corey, thank you so much, honestly, for this time and these questions and just the opportunity. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the podcast, and I just hope that we did well.
Oh yeah,
so thank you so much.
We did super good. No, this is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to how it's going to come out. To the viewers, sometimes the right suit isn't just about clothing; it's the armor for your life battles.
Ooh.
And with all the stitches of life, a few come together and fall into suit. Thank you for watching this episode of the Key Concepts podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one.
That's so good.